anything that's rare means that there isn't the research, there is a lot of guesstimates, there isn't a clear path to resolve it, and it might not be resolved. And I just couldn't even think of what a future might look like. So we cancel the surgery already, and when you get your insurance issue resolved, you can come back and make an appointment. And for some reason, I felt a sense of relief. I'm like, what are the odds that the surgery would be canceled the like hours before I have to go in? But that feeling that I shouldn't do this went away. And I just knew that this was not what I needed to do. And I remember asking God, if not this, then what is it? And so I started researching, well, maybe there's something else I should be doing. And I came across this clinic at Mass General, and they specialized in fibroids. And I called and I explained my situation, and they told me that there was a procedure that was actually done through radiology, where they can go in through the main artery in like your thigh or something like that, and go into, and they I forget right now what the name of it is called, but they basically go in and they inject something that will kill the fibroids. So it's even less invasive than having a laparoscopic surgery done. The recovery for this is a week. And I'm just sorry, I can't just second recall what the name of it is called. And I was like, you know what? That's even better. So I made an appointment with a radiologist, and they said, well, you need an MRI to make sure that you're a good candidate for this procedure. And so I made the MRI appointment and went in. I had an MRI done, and it was the first time I've actually had an MRI during the entire time that I was going back and forth suffering with these fibroids all these years. I never, not one doctor ever suggested having an MRI. It was always an ultrasound and all these different kinds of ultrasound. And he called me with the results of the MRI, and he said, you know, we see some polyps here and around the uterus, and I think that I'm going to refer you back to the gynecologist at the OBGYN department, and just have her take a look at it and just see what the next steps are to make sure that you're ready to have this procedure. So I called the doctor's office, and she said, okay, we'll take a look at it. And so she took a look at the MRI results, and she said, well, these are just polyps, and we can go ahead and schedule you to have them removed. It's not a big deal. We'll go ahead and remove them and make sure that you're all set to have the radiology procedure done. And so I made an appointment. It's an in and out surgery. She went in, she took out the polyps, and while she was there, she said, I'm going to remove a couple of the, she said to me that she was gonna like look around while she was there to make sure that there just wasn't anything else. And so she removed the polyps, and she removed, she said there was like a small fibroid next to it, and she just removed everything. Fine. She said, Kizzy, we do this all the time. You should be fine. We're going to send it to get biopsied. and give you a call back, and you can just move on with radiology, no problem. And she said it generally takes about 2 weeks to get everything back, and then you can make your appointment and move on. And so I didn't think anything of it, and I just went on with my life. And at the time, because it was still, now it was 2021, and so the kids were back at school, but my daughter was doing like a hybrid schedule. And so I'm home with her one day, and it's a week after I had the procedure done. I get a phone call, and it's the gynecologist, and I didn't pick up on anything on her voice or anything, and she said, "Kizzy, I need to call you right away. I needed to call you right away." And I said, "Oh, okay." She said, "Kizzy, we did the biopsy, and I'm sorry to have to tell you that you have a rare form of cancer." And I don't know how many of you have ever heard those words, but it's like time stops. And I remember just trying to process what she's saying. And she tells me that it is so rare, that they don't know much about it, and that she just needed to get this to me right away and refer me to oncology. I need to call right away and take the next steps, so I would not be moving forward with having a radiology procedure done. And she told me she was going to call the radiologist, let them know, and I needed to connect immediately with oncology. And I just remember thinking to myself a whole myriad of thoughts. I just remember thinking, you know, wow, God, I just can't even believe this is happening. And I began to think about my children and think about what's going to happen to them. What is this going to do? You know, we had just moved about a year, maybe about a year and a half to the Boston area. I'm home, I don't have a job, just trying to deal with, you know, not feeling well. It's the pandemic, they're heading back to school, you know, we don't have any money. And I'm like, wow. And I said, I would love to just sit and tell you that I just was like, oh, you know, praise the Lord, it's gonna be fine. I fell to the ground and I was just shocked. I don't even know if I cried. I was just shocked. And I could honestly say I wasn't expecting it. And so that I remember calling my pastor and telling him, and I kind of felt like I needed to process it. Like, what do I need to do? And I remember praying, and I'm saying to God, you know, I need a miracle, because even with all the advances in the world of cancer, anything that's rare means that there isn't the research, there is a lot of guesstimates, there isn't a clear path to resolve it, and it might not be resolved. And I just couldn't even think of what a future might look like. And so I just began to pray. I just began to pray and say, God, I need a miracle. And I remember I didn't want to, it wasn't something that I wanted to tell my kids at the time, not because I wanted to hide something from them, but because they had experienced so much trauma, and we had moved and they had changed schools and they had seen me so sick. I felt like I wanted to protect them from this bad news unless it reached a place where I had to share it. And I actually really didn't tell anybody. And so, and not because I didn't want to share news, but really it was because I didn't want it to get back to the kids and cause stress to them. And maybe that was not what I should have done, but that's what I did. I'm just being honest. And so I made an appointment and I went to the oncologist, and she said to me, you know, this is a slow growing kind. She said, hopefully we can go in. The plan would be to do a full hysterectomy, take out the uterus, ovaries, just everything, and have everything biopsy and stage where the cancer is. Once we stage it, we can know, you know, what should we do? Should we try radiation? Should we try chemo? What should work? And I was just kind of like, okay. And she said, we need to schedule surgery immediately. Now, by this time, the fibroids were so large, it was in comparison to a 6-month pregnancy. The uterus was so large. The fibroids had just taken a life of their own and grown. Just, I could feel it. I could feel it when I pushed down on my abdomen. I could feel it, you know, it just felt like hard stones. Like, I can't even describe it, just ugly. And it was like growing larger by the week. And so I made an appointment to have the surgery done, and honestly, everything happened within like a week from the point in time I found out about the cancer. And she, the oncology surgeon, went in and did the surgery. And when I woke up, she said the surgery took longer than expected. She said, Kizzy, the uterus was so large and so difficult in how it was positioned to take out. And she said, I think that I got everything. And she said, we've sent it to be biopsied, and we will tell you what stage the cancer is in. And she said, by the way, there was about 15 fibroids. So the very large one plus like 14 others. And she said they all needed to be biopsied, everything. And so I was stunned because the ultrasound really had only showed like 5. The MRI only showed like 5, but they just was everywhere. They were everywhere. So that didn't happen overnight. That happened over time. And even if I had gotten married and was gonna have kids, clearly that was not gonna happen. And so the surgery recovery was beyond incredibly difficult. Like, having something removed that big, was just beyond. I felt like I had lost a massive chunk of me, which I did. I hadn't realized just everything it had caused, the inflammation, the pain that I was feeling in my back, my lower back. The fibroids were so large that they were pinching the nerves in my legs. So in addition to the cramps I was having every month that was incredibly painful, I was also having nerve pain going down my leg, and especially on the sides. And then it had moved from the side of my leg to just the front part of my leg where the veins run down. Like, I was in constant pain all the time prior to the surgery. And I think that's why I was so desperate to have it done, because I was in such pain. And so I felt relief after the surgery, because I remember thinking to myself, wow, so this pain is gonna finally be gone. I'm gonna have to deal with whatever comes after, but this pain is gonna be gone. And so as I was in the hospital waiting to get the results back, I just remember praying and saying, you know what, God, whatever happens is in your hands. I cannot control the future. I am not God, but I'm gonna have to believe you for a miracle. And the doctor said to me that it was literally a miracle that I did not have the laparoscopic procedure done, because had I had the laparoscopic procedure done in the way that the technique that they used to do it, the cancer would have spread throughout my whole body. And she told me that even though this kind of cancer is rare, what they do know about it is it's found in its later stages, because unfortunately a lot of women don't even know they have it, and they have hysterectomies and it causes the cancer to spread everywhere. And she said to me, someone was looking over you. And I remember telling her that I'm a Christian and God was looking out for me. And that is the reason why I had this feeling that I should not have done this in terms of the procedure. And I felt it was just stunning to come to that realization that God was trying to save my life. And at that point in time, I realized it's gonna be okay. And about 4 days later, I got the results of the biopsy, and she told me that when the first surgeon had removed the polyp and what she thought was a fibroid, she had actually taken out all of the cancer. So there was none of the 14 or 15 fibroids that was left was not cancerous. Nothing had spread throughout my body, because I had multiple CAT scans done, and that there was no evidence of cancer anywhere. And I thought to myself, and she said, you know, it's just amazing that everything came out in the first surgery. And I thought to myself, you know, that's no coincidence. I had 15 fibroids. What are the odds that the one that the doctor pulled out was the cancer and none of the other 14 was? What are the odds of that? That is not coincidence. She could have pulled out any of them, or any of them could have been the cancer. How did the one be it? And I was blown away. And she told me there was no evidence of cancer. There's nothing else. That I did not need chemo. I did not need radiation. And she just kept on saying, wow. She said, someone was looking out for you. And I told her it was God. It was God. And I would think to myself, all of these times that I had prayed and asked God for healing, it wasn't that He wasn't hearing my prayer. Because a lot of times when we pray, we think, oh, God's not hearing me because He's just not answering my prayer when we want it to be answered. And in my case, I was in pain. I had experienced pain. And I don't know all the reasons for that experience. I mean, life happens to us, whether we know God or not. But what I do know is God did hear my prayer all of those years I was praying for healing. And He was setting me up for one of the biggest miracles of my life. Because this kind of cancer is generally always found at like stage 4. Not how it was found. And the fact that I didn't have these surgeries, even though I was trying with the first doctor, I was trying with the second doctor, I was trying with the third doctor, I went back to the doctor again. So that's time number 4. Now I'm trying another technique. And it was like, it was like every way God was like guiding me. And I didn't even know that, nope, that's not it. Not knowing, had I gotten through with any of those angles, I probably would not be here right now. And I knew that God did a miracle. I knew it. There's no other explanation. There is nothing that anyone's going to tell me. This is not coincidence. This is impossible. And it's not just happenstance, it's not just, luck. I know that God touched me. I know that God healed my body, and I know that God did a miracle. And I can sit and tell you, after being a Christian for as long as I have, that God is real and He hears your prayers. And we don't always know all that's happened in life. It could have been a possibility that I wouldn't have gotten healed, or I could have gone through the surgery and they found it at a later stage and there would be no recourse for me. Things happen to us. Bad things happen to people that know God. But I know that God saved my life, and I'm grateful for that. And so the surgery recovery was long, and I ended up needing to go to physical therapy because taking out the uterus, the amount of pain that I was in, the joint pain that the nerve pain that I was having, the back pain, it was like the body just needed to be rehabbed, and I just remember going through those times and just thanking God that I was living to see another day, to be with my children. And I am so grateful. I'm so grateful to God, and I know that He's real. And God's done more miracles even than that over the last 20 years. And like I hinted at my adoption, I will share that story maybe the next time of how that happened, because it's incredible. And I believe that God does these things not for us to just keep it to ourselves. All throughout the Bible, God did miracles. Jesus did miracles, and he touched lives, and people saw this, and it encouraged them. It encouraged them to reach out to Jesus. And I want to encourage those of you that don't know Jesus, that he can touch you. And maybe your situation is cancer. Maybe your situation is something else. Maybe it's a broken marriage. Maybe it's just hardship, difficulty, a lack of finances. We all deal with all sorts of different things in our lives. But without Jesus, there is no hope. And I want to encourage you today that if you don't know Jesus, that you can know him. You can know him. I grew up in church. I grew up hearing about God, but I didn't know God. And that can be a lot of people's story. They grew up very religious. You are born into something and you just follow it. And that's just what you do. And but I know that when I asked Jesus into my heart, and for me, I needed something tangible. I just was one of these people that I needed to see to believe. And God touched my life in a powerful way that even back then, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that God was real. And it's continued. And so I hope that this encourages you and that it will help you. Because how do you know that God is real? It's because he changes your life and he moves. A God that's real touches us right where we are at. And it doesn't take this drawn out, all these words and prayers and all of this. It's just you being honest. Coming to God. Honest. Talking to him. God, I need help. Thank you for what you did on the cross. I'm a sinner. Come into my heart. That's what I did. And he will revolutionize your life. So why is all that happening in Asbury University? To kind of go back to how I started this, it's because people have realized their need for God. And we all need to come to this place where we realize our need for God. If you don't realize your need for God, you're not going to turn to him, because you're going to think, it's just religion. Oh, it's just something that makes you feel good, a crutch, all of this stuff. And you'll miss who he is and what he wants to do in your life. And God has a plan for your life right where you are at. So thank you for listening. Sorry this is so long. I just wanted to make sure I got everything out, and I hope it encourages you.